Good news for the wedding industry. I think if I read it right, Boris did say we're going to make an exception and allow weddings to go back to normal. Am I right on that?
No, not quite. No, as ever, the devil is in the detail, and the Prime Minister didn't really give any. They are lifting the restrictions on numbers for outdoor weddings, although for indoors, it's still based on a social distancing capacity. But we still have no dancing, we still have masks for ceremonies, and we still have restrictions that mean that normal weddings are not going ahead as we know them yet.
Is it still the 30 guest maximum, or has that been extended?
That's been extended, so there's no cap at all. Only for indoor spaces, it has to be socially distanced, so the capacity will be influenced that way.
So, but you still do have my favourite crazy rule of all the crazy COVID rules, which is after the wedding, when you get to the wedding breakfast to the reception, only the happy couple are allowed to dance.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Just
utterly preposterous. We have got outdoor weddings, receptions. It's advised against dancing. We all know that Boris Johnson and Carrie danced around the fire pit at their wedding, so clearly they're not taking the rules that seriously. We also have drinks receptions where we have to be seated at tables at wedding venues. And yet at the G7, we see them standing with a drink, looking up at the sky and cheering when the planes go past. It's absolute and utter total hypocrisy. There's no reason or scientific evidence behind normal weddings not going ahead. We've got the average age of someone getting married now is 37. The majority are vaccinated. We know that 83% of couples are asking guests to test in advance. They're being safe. We're doing what we can.
But what did you feel? You must have been spitting blood as you watched the G7 leaders break every COVID rule in the book throughout the G7 summit down in Cornwall. I mean, it wasn't just the barbecue that they had, the sort of clam bake on the beach where they were all hugging and kissing, but they all the way through they were shaking hands. They weren't wearing masks. They were inside in rooms without wearing masks, not socially distanced. I mean, it really did send a message that it's one rule for them and another for the rest of us, which must be particularly frustrating for you in the wedding business because of all the crazy rules that you have to operate under.
Absolutely. I mean, couples are absolutely spitting mad having looked at it. There's been images released from the barbecue itself and the table settings, and it looks like a wedding. It's truly unbelievable to see those scenes happening. And he has the cheek to stand there in front of the nation and say, well, we've done it, but you still can't. It's unbelievable. And, we're looking at the scenes of the pubs and the restaurants, which I'm glad. I'm glad the football's going ahead and people are having a good time. But when you can't have 100 people have a dance at a private event where they're testing in advance, it's crazy.
Yeah, and the idea that at a wedding, if only the happy couple are allowed to dance and no one else is allowed to dance, that will somehow really advance us in the war against COVID. I mean, it's mad, isn't it?
None of it makes sense. The government's own scientific evidence that they produced at the beginning of all of this is completely flawed. We produced a huge paper, which is published on the What About Weddings website, which takes it apart. We've never been given a good reason other than you know each other, so you're going to hug and kiss. Well, we are now allowed to do that. We've got people meeting in groups of 30. Those attending a wedding are already socializing. All it does is penalize couples in what should be one of the happiest days of their lives. And the businesses, the many, many businesses, over 60,000 of us, who supply couples with all the parts of their day that they should be looking forward to.
The other element of the rank hypocrisy that we saw on display down in Cornwall was, of course, not necessarily a wedding-related issue, but as a citizen of this country, it must have annoyed you because it annoyed me, because part of the big lecturing that this lot were giving us was all about climate change, save the planet, do our bit, to stop global warming. And they all arrived there on massive private jets. When Joe Biden, who is a real climate change lecturer, he loves to berate us about our poor dying world. When he came back to see the Queen from Cornwall to London, he flew in Air Force One, that massive, great I think it's a jumbo jet. The Air Force One, the President's jet. He flew from Cornwall to London. And these people are lecturing us about climate change. It's outrageous, isn't it?
Maybe they could learn something from the wedding industry. I mean, I run a business where, I have a floristry side of my business. We don't use floral foam. My studio is run on biomass. We use catering teams that use waste food to make canapes. Our industry is constantly trying to use local producers, British producers, locally grown flowers. We're a hugely, incredibly creative, fantastic industry that sets an example. And yes, yet again, we're seeing more hypocrisy and scenes that I think pretty much everybody in the UK is finding really difficult to swallow.
Yes, and it's worth pointing out, Jessie, just before you go, that I learnt the other day that Britain is seen as the leading country for wedding planning in the whole world, a beacon for the rest of the world. And there he is, Boris Johnson, apparently doing his level best to eliminate or destroy that industry. But listen, Jessie, thank you so much for your time, and I wish you all the best in these difficult times. Jessie Westwood, there, UK wedding planner and campaign manager at What About